What's up, y'all? Shane Sam's back here with the Shane Sam Show. And you know, I'm excited to hang out with a buddy of mine that I haven't seen in a long time, but we've been hanging out, talking on phones, keeping up with each other. But we ain't been in the same room at the same time. And that's something that we're going to have to remedy. It's the one and only Jeff Rose. Jeff Rose, what are you doing, buddy?
What's up? I'm drinking some coffee. That's how I'm doing.
Dude, I drink one of those giant rain energy. There's this flavor. It's called razzleberry. And I don't know what a razzleberry is, but I want to find them because they're delicious. They're absolutely delicious. But it's got 400 milligrams of caffeine, and I sip on it all day. But I drank it all before lunch today.
So how are you actually sitting down doing this interview, man? Sorry, not doing jumping jacks.
I'll tell you why. It's because I've developed another habitual activity called Zen. You seen the Zens?
No, I have not.
Just nicotine. It's just pure. It's just pure nicotine right in your veins, man. It's like I was watching a Tucker Carlson video, and he was talking about this stuff, and how it had it's like to help people get off tobacco, but like a lot of entrepreneurs are using it as a biohack.
Oh,
And
wow.
I'm like, and then our buddy Joe Nicoletti, Joe, he Unchained Rider, learn Scrivener fast, go check him out. But he started using them, and he was like, oh man, it's like I'm ADD, and these help me calm down and get focused and everything else. And I'm like, well, I guess I'll just go get addicted to this drug real fast.
I'll write that one down.
Yeah, the best comment I've heard about them is it feels like God is massaging your nervous system, and that is true. So this is not an endorsement for nicotine pouches, but it kind of is. All right. But all right, we're not here to talk about nicotine, y'all. We're here to talk about something very near and dear to our hearts, and that's partnerships. Now, one of the greatest quotes that I ever heard about partnerships came from our good friend Dave Ramsey. And Dave Ramsey one time said, "The only ship that's guaranteed to sink is a partnership." And I've been through a couple sunk ships, Jeff Rose, you know what I'm saying? But we have an interesting dilemma. Not only have we had business partners that we've built companies with, but our wives, Jocelyn and Mandy, are also our business partners. So we're looking at this from every angle today. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
when I say the word partnership, Jeff, how do you feel about that? I want not your thoughts. I want to know your feelings about the word.
I get a little PTSD, a little bit of like nauseousness slash like want to vomit a little bit, like want to run out of the room, throw my computer. No, definitely the partnerships, like there was a lot of fruit that came from the partnerships I've been in. There's also been a lot of trauma from those
Yeah, man.
partnerships. So, I'm grateful that I'm still here, that, still have my family, I still have my house, that, we are, for all intents and purposes, financially free. So that's all good. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of PTSD.
Yeah, man, that's hilarious. We're gonna. This might end up being therapy more than it ends up being an actual entrepreneur discussion at this point. Okay, so let's do this. Let's frame. We'll do a couple quick introductions of the businesses that we had these partnerships in. Okay, and then I think we should talk about benefits and challenges, and then maybe we can talk about being a partner with your spouse at the end. Okay, so real quick, tell me about the website, Good Financial Sense, and how that became a partnership, and then how you sold equity. Let's just get a little context, and then I'll talk about mine, and then we'll talk about some benefits and challenges. I like how you said fruits and traumas of partnerships. I might call that episode "Fruits and Traumas of Partnerships." Okay, so tell me about the website and your initial partnership.
Yeah. So going back to like 2016, 17, had a financial planning practice that I was still running. Also, I had started a financial blog, goodfinancialsense.com, that was a side hustle, and was able to grow it where I was making about $15,000, $16,000 a month, which for a guy that knew nothing about SEO, didn't know anything about affiliate marketing, I was really proud of that.
It's bank, bro. That's a good job. Bank.
And I also knew like I kind of had reached that point, that ceiling of complexity where I'm like, okay, I can only get it to here. And really at that time, like I really did not, I saw other people out there like Pat Flynn's of the world, making, 5-6 figures a month. I don't know if I truly believed that I had that potential. And through a mutual friend, I was introduced to a guy who knew SEO, knows SEO, and he told me, he's like, he did like the Href study of my site, look at all the backlinks, look at all the domain profile and all that stuff. And he's like, man, like your site should be making like six figures a month. And
Hmm.
at that time, I'm just like, I just didn't believe it. I didn't believe it, but I definitely was like, okay, I'm interested to learn more. So that's kind of how the conversation began. And so yeah, I mean, that's kind of how it all started. I don't know if you want to go more into it, but that's how it started.
Yeah, we'll dig. We'll dig. So, okay, so my now, I think context here. When that guy came in, was it equity in the beginning? Did you immediately give equity, or did you own it? When you sold the company, that's when he got equity. Is that when it was? When did equity happen? Because equity is the big bad word. You know what I'm saying? That's when things
Yeah.
get complicated, dude.
Equity happened 5 years after that initial conversation. So
Okay.
5 years.
So were you paying him like a salary at that time, or were you paying him profit share? Like, what were you paying him?
Yeah. So like it was really one of those irresistible offers. It basically was like, hey, this is your base. Like, here's how much you're making. He had so much confidence in himself. The pitch was you keep your base. Anything over and above that, we split 50-50.
That's very similar to the partnership I found myself in. Okay. Because you still own 100% of your company,
Mm-hmm.
but there's this massive upside on all this extra money that's going to get created. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, like, about 2020, met a guy, and guys, just so you know, you could probably figure out people, whatever. We're not going to talk about our part. We love people. We love our humans. Nobody's mad. We're just doing our thing. We're not going to name names. Will be changed to protect the innocent in all of these situations. Okay, but we had a opportunity come up, and I was kind of in the same boat at the end of 2020. I didn't know. I did not have the skill, wisdom, knowledge, talent, belief, whatever you want to fill in the blank with, of how to get Flip Lifestyle to the next level. You know what I'm saying? I just really
Mm-hmm.
didn't understand. We were the same way. We were making more money than we ever thought we could make, but we knew that there had to be some other tier that we could unlock in this. And I got approached by a guy who was wanting to start a company where there would be four principals. Not We called ourselves partners, but there was no equity in each other's companies. We were almost like a confederacy. You know what I'm saying? Like, I had my
Mm-hmm.
company, other people had theirs, and everyone was going to focus on what they did. Like, I taught one thing, someone else taught one thing, and then they would focus on like marketing. So he was kind of my SEO guy. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? That came in,
Mm-hmm.
right? But we were trying to create a much bigger pot than we could ever create on our own, and then we would take big chunks of it, just like kind of you were. You know what I'm saying? So that's super interesting. But then immediately things change in your business when you bring on someone at that level, because every decision is so critical for everybody at that point, right? So
Mm-hmm.
so this first partnership starts out, you guys grow together, right? And then you wanted to sell or something like that, correct?
So, his vision was his goal was to get to 100K a month. And like, I forgot the time frame. Like, it was less than a year, maybe a year. It it took him a little bit longer than a year, but within like, let's say 15 months, 16 months, like it happened. And I'm like,
Yeah.
whoa, like, okay. And then it goes from 100 to 150. And I can't remember what we topped out at, but it was close to 200, if I recall. And,
Yeah, it was a lot. I remember. Yeah. It was kind of
so
preposterous. We would talk on the phone and we'd be like, what is happening right now?
what is happening? What is happening? And, now the thing that kind of made it interesting was like, also he agreed and I was open to it. Like, I was still paying for like hosting, which wasn't a lot. I was paying for some writers, but he was taking on writers, other SEO people on his team, and he was incurring all those expenses. And like that was
Wow.
the agreement, which, looking back, like we definitely should have restructured that. But I
Yeah.
mean, it was like, why would I do that? Because it was definitely, it definitely helped, line my pockets more. And he never really went back to say, hey, I think we need to like re-talk
Figure
about
this
this
back
deal,
out.
So
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
we reached this point where like we're both making really, really good money. And then we got approached by a third partner that initially wanted to buy the site. The offer was 10 million. And that would have I could have taken all of that. I didn't want to sell because it didn't seem like, why would I sell on this asset that's making 200, like at that point, I'm really not doing a lot of work on the site, so like my take, I'm making 100, 150K a month, not doing anything other than like recording YouTube videos for fun. So it didn't make sense, for me to sell. So then this partner was, hey, I'm like, hey, I just flat out said no. And then it went from buying us out completely to like, hey, can we buy, a minority stake in the site? So I'm like, oh, so that was a little bit more enticing. Was like, hey, take some money off the table, give up a little bit of equity, but also this third partner, they had a lot of affiliate relationships that we did not have access to, and that was just because of how much they were spending on Google ad spend and everything. So the thought was not just to sell, but also to have like a partner, that a strategic partner that also makes sense because we can also increase our monthly revenue.
That's interesting too. That like, yeah, there's this famous episode of Frasier. Remember that show Frasier?
I do remember.
And the
Right, not the
great
episode we
show.
talked about.
My favorite show, maybe of all time. Me and Jocelyn still watch reruns. I was watching a rerun of Frasier last night. Hilarious. But there's this episode where Frasier and his brother Niles were not good at sports, and they had never learned how to ride a bike. And there's this really hilarious scene where they get frustrated with each other because they're trying to teach each other how to ride the bike. And one of them literally says, maybe two guys that don't know how to ride a bike shouldn't teach each other how to ride a bike. And I just imagine this third partner coming in. You and your current partner have not really talked about what should happen. And you're like, let's bring in a third partner, even though we haven't even figured out our first partnership yet. But you don't know what you don't know, right? You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah. So it definitely was enticing. So for that to happen, so at that point in time, like we do not have a legal partnership. We have a legit handshake agreement on this rev share. That was like an email that was sent, 5 years prior.
You and your first partner, not the new guy.
Me and the first partner. Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So, if I'm going to sell equity, I didn't have to give him anything. I could have just, hey, it's my site. Sure, I'm going to sell it all. But it felt like, growing from 16K a month to whatever we were at, 150, 180, 200, I forgot, somewhere in that ballpark. I felt like, he definitely deserved some of that. So I gave him equity, so that he could sell a portion of his. I gave him, gosh, I'm trying to remember. I think it was 40%.
Was it 10? Oh, was it 40? I thought it was something
40.
less wait, it was 40 when you were together, but it was less when you went in with the third partner, right?
So basically it was like, I gave him 40, so 60-40, and then we each sold a percentage of our equity to the third partner, which I think was 20. I think I sold 15 of mine. Yeah, because I still had 55. No, yeah. Still had a majority. Maybe it was 70. I forget.
Yeah, man.
Too much time has happened. But yeah, I think they wanted 20. So he sold off where he still had some equity. He sold off more of his. And I sold a little bit of mine. But then that way I still had, full control of the site, full voting rights, which I still wanted. So that's when we went from dating to getting married. And that's when that's when it started to unravel.
Yes. Yeah. Do you remember that time that I was I mean, of course we all you and I talked about we've talked about everything, marriage, parenting, everything. Do you remember that time you called me? It was like the partnership, the just life, like everything. Do you remember that time that you called me? I remember I was in Evans. I was in Santa Claus, Indiana at Holiday World out on a playground. And I remember just sitting on a grassy knoll and like you were just like the unraveled word triggered this memory. You were just like, there were swear words. It was crazy. Like everything was going. I just remember thinking to myself, I don't ever want to be in a partnership. But I was talking to you at that moment. And then like later on, I'm like found myself in a partnership and like and then the more cooks that entered that partnership kitchen, the worse it got. So how did it get better or worse once the third party came in?
Initially it got better. We went from 200K to 400K
Wow.
pretty quickly. And that lasted, if I recall, about 6 months.
That's the
The
honeymoon,
honeymoon,
is what we call that.
the
The
honeymoon
honeymoon. Yes,
phase.
that's the honeymoon.
Um, and then where it started to unravel was remembering like nothing changed. Like he was still paying, and he had grown. He went from like two employees, like one of which was like his sister, to having his own agency. Um,
Wow.
and there were some other things that happened where like kind of some red flags, but the major red flag for me was he asked if I would pitch in more of my revenue share, to help grow the agency, help grow the team, which I was like, I'm all for that. I'm all
Mhm.
for that. Can you so help me understand like what's it going towards? Are we hiring writers? Are we hiring, is this for content creators? Is it for design? Design, like what are we using it for? And that was a question that I never could get the answer to.
Mm, not a
Like
good sign.
what are we spending our money on? And they're just to make it more complicated with that first partner, he also had a partner that which he was an older fellow. So like I actually kind of looked to him for like wisdom, and experience. And like I thought he kind of had the level head between the two. And I remember him saying, because I asked that question, and the response I got was, you know, if I'm spending $1 and I'm getting $3 in return, I don't know if I really need to know where that dollar is going to.
Hmm.
And I'm like, I get what you're saying, but like we had, and this is a lot of him, the initial vision was like going from 16K to 100K, and he did that. And the next vision was like selling the site for 100 million. Like that was the
Mm,
goal. And that looking back
yeah.
then, like there were sites selling for 50, 60 million. So this was
Oh yeah.
not an unreasonable uh, goal, vision, dream at that time. But knowing that if we're trying to sell this thing, we're gonna have to show them what our bottom line is, what our expenses are, where we're actually, how are we actually going to grow this. And if you don't know what we're spending our money on, and because you can't even answer that to me, then how are we actually going to know what fire to pour the gas on? Like how,
Yeah.
where do we actually focus our efforts? If so anyway, when that question couldn't get answered, and then I started getting a lot of weird defensiveness, like, how dare you ask me? I'm like, hey, dude, like you're not my contractor. Like this is a partnership. So
And
anyway,
he asked for money. He asked for
and
more profit share. You know what I'm saying? Like I
yeah,
think it's like, hey, give me a bunch of money. Why? I'll tell you later. Like that's not good enough, especially when
mhm,
hundreds of thousands of dollars are at stake. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? Okay,
yeah,
so let's hit pause. Okay, so let me go back into
mhm,
mine now.
mhm,
So like it was kind of it was interesting. You brought up something like I'm writing down some things here. Like like I never even entertained a partnership, but you brought up some really interesting reasons like why to have a partnership that I wrote down. One of them is partners bring in abilities you don't have.
yep,
Like you said, you are not an SEO guy. What would happen if I partnered with an SEO guy? So like just bringing on that ability was amazing. Like this company that I worked with, these companies that we partnered with, we all had different abilities. I was an online guy. Other people were doing stuff that was more offline. One guy was really good at putting butts in seats. I mean, and that's a very hard skill ability to have is to be able to just clockwork. Let's put this many people in front of the right people so that we can sell more stuff. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So that's a good reason to bring in to get into a partnership is you're looking for abilities that you don't have. And I love what you said too, like, and also access. Like sometimes just partnerships, one access to one network or one product or one affiliate relationship can double your income. And then
hmm,
everybody, makes more money. And that's really another reason is I think both of us entered into our partnerships that we got into um, for more money. I mean, that's really the outcome that kind of entices, I think, most people into it is more money, you get more access, you get more ability, and you get more money. And it's kind of like, as the entrepreneur, like some people would say, well, I can just hire those things. Well, when your website's making $10,000 a month and you're feeding your family off of it, you can't just go hire the greatest SEO guy on the planet to come do all your SEO. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? Or if you don't have enough money to run massive amounts of ads, to go and fill seats and fill webinars and fill things like that. Well, you can partner with someone who has capital and they can do that, right? So it's not just a hire your way out of it. But those are all, I think all the reasons you put out there were like really, really good reasons. That was the reason, that's exactly the reason we joined into a partnership. And there were a lot of benefit. Okay, so let's talk about the good first. Okay, so we're both in these partnerships. We both see, they don't, I wouldn't say mine went sideways, that we just went our different ways in a way. You
Hmm.
know what I'm saying? Um, I think yours definitely has a more sideways bent to it from, our conversations. But like, okay, in the partnerships though, what benefits did you find from it? Like you said, you weren't working a lot, things like
Yeah.
that. Like what's the benefit of having partners that might outweigh the challenges and keep you in a partnership?
Yeah, I think one of the benefits is, if you want to learn any new skill, whether it be SEO or affiliate marketing or ads, like you can go learn it. There's courses that you can buy, there's people that you can hire, there's coaches you can hire, and it's going to take time, and yeah, you can fast track it, but it's still going to take time and energy, and it might be something that you just really aren't that passionate about. Like I like SEO, but I'm not like gonna sit there and geek out over it like 24/7. I'll just get bored pretty quickly. So
Yeah.
getting access to somebody that has all that experience already that can just start from the ground up. I mean, it was helpful, and having somebody that if there were questions about SEO or Google updates, I could actually talk to somebody that
Mm,
somewhat knew what was going on, versus trying to like read in forums and blog posts and watch YouTube videos and try to figure out this person actually knows what they're talking about. So,
mm,
having that person to talk to. And also, like, man, like that first 5 years it was exciting to talk about the vision and the direction and the growth and the potential. It was so rewarding. And like, yeah, he was a partner, but like he was also a friend, it's like
mm.
just somebody I could talk to. And we talked about family stuff too, some personal challenges like I was going through with myself and also my youngest son at the time. So it was, yeah, it was so valuable in so many resources, in so many ways, until it wasn't.
That's exactly right. It works until it doesn't. You know what I'm saying? Like, I love what you said there though, because I think that like one reason, I kind of been a one man band. My wife was with me, but we were a 2-person band. You know what I'm saying? And that loneliness that sets in sometimes when you build that first iteration of your company, like you can join masterminds and you can have friends, but you're still the guy sitting at the desk or the gal sitting at the desk going, crap, I got to figure this out. I don't know what to do. I'm not made for this. And like that being, it's almost like joining a team again. You know what I'm saying? I missed
Yeah.
like when I used to coach football,
Yeah.
being on the team. Like that was just a benefit of doing that. And it is exciting because all of a sudden you think you got a vision until you get around someone else and you combine your visions together. And it's like, holy smokes, I would never have even imagined doing something like this by myself.
Yeah.
But now I'm not alone anymore. That's actually a really good benefit of a partnership is you don't have to figure it out alone. 'Cause that's a
Hmm.
lot of pressure, man. I
Yeah.
sit here sometimes, I'm like, gosh, man, I got to make this call. I'm the one who's got to do this. But it's almost like if you could diffuse that out with people, it would just take a little bit of the pressure off of you because you'd be able to do it
Hmm.
with somebody else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that friendship is interesting too, because when you hire people, like you become close. And I would say I definitely have people I hire that are friends, but like they're not like peers, right? A partnership is a peer. Like that's someone like, oh, we're both equally trying to do something big. And I'm having trouble with my kid at school. And me and my wife got in a fight last night. And
Hmm.
whatever. So they're kind of like they have the same problems you do. So you can share the same problems that you have. That's a very, very, very good benefit, man. When did it go? So, all right. So that's one benefit. When did it not work? When did you clearly see it like not working?
When the conversation came up about asking for more money,
Okay.
and I guess I should mention, like initially, like I was going to do it, and my wife Mandy was very adamant about like something feels off. And she really pushed me to dig deeper. And initially, like I didn't. I had too much fear that that I was going to find out something I didn't want to find out, if that makes sense. And
Mm-hmm.
but like she kept pushing, and I hated her for it. Thank God she did. She's stubborn. Um, so when I basically just said, listen, I'm not going to contribute more until you can show me where the money's going. Um, Within 90 days of me putting my foot down, he wanted out. He wanted to
Mm.
sell his remaining stake.
Now, this
And
was after the third party came in, right?
yep, so third party is in. And I should also add like this, the third partner, I didn't know them very well. He kind of became like my agent. It was like this weird relationship where he kind of like was protecting me from them, like what it felt like. Um, and and I kind of liked it, if I'm being honest, because like, I just, it like made me feel like, oh, look at me, I've got this person negotiating on my behalf, and kind of felt like this celebrity. So I didn't 100% trust them because I didn't know them, even though they definitely had some cool success stories and very well respected. But then I'm like, wait, you want out? Like with like 6 months ago, I have a text that says we're going to sell for 100 million. Why would you want out now? Like it didn't make sense to me, even though like, yeah, I get, I'm not adding an extra 10 or 15K a month, but like, if you truly think this thing's going to sell in the next 2 to 3 years for 100 mil, like, why do you want out?
You think he saw red flags that it wasn't going to do that, and that's why he wanted out?
I, I know like knowing what I know now, there were some other things going on in his personal life and also his business
Gotcha.
where he needed the money. He needed
This
the
is a
money. And
short-term problem.
I was not aware of that at the time. It wasn't until kind of afterwards when I started to talk to some other people and started to learn like, oh, yeah. So that's when it started. And I think within 90 days of him wanting out, like for the next year, it was, oh, dude, it was miserable, man. Like we went from being friends and texting each other and talking to speaking via attorney.
Wow,
Um,
dude, that's
for a
harsh, man.
year, for a
That's hard,
year.
dude.
It was hard, like and like he wanted out. And so like we began the process, and then we got to the final stages where we had all the documents ready to be drafted by all the different attorneys. And then all of a sudden he comes back and says, no, I changed my mind. I want back in. I'm like, wait, what?
Humans.
This,
All these humans trying to make decisions, man.
like this, that doesn't work, man. Like that doesn't work. Like you've told me to my face that you want out. Like you're done. Like your heart's not in it. You need to go to something, and now you want back in. I'm like, dude, no. So anyway,
you said something a second ago. I wrote this down too. Like as a challenge of partnerships, is it adds complexity, man, because you're adding multiple humans in the decision making roles. Then again, they're all connected to other humans, like personal relationships and wives and challenges and brothers and sisters and all this stuff. They have other agendas. Everyone has multiple like agendas, and this is something common I'm finding as I talk to more of my friends who have partnerships and things like that. Um, Greed, man. Greed is like greed when it's just you. This is a little greed is good. No, I'm not saying that, but like I think that like greed, which is just another word for I want more or ambition or I want to make more money or I want to grow my business or whatever you're saying. Like when it's just you, it's like cool. I'll just try to grow my business and make more for me and my family. But then the greed comes in, or the I need money comes in because of cash flow issues, or something else comes in when humans are involved, and it starts getting like ticky tack. Like the again, our partnerships were completely structured differently. A lot of it's semantics. We're all me and you both built things that were working on handshakes with other people to create big pots of money. That's what we were trying to do, right? And like mine came in the fact that we had written agreements that declared what percentages we all would get, and we based our individual decisions on those percentages. And because of things in the market, because of the industry, because of whatever, that instead of a written agreement that was totally in stone, they kept like expiring, and then every time they would expire, it was time to negotiate new, and literally it was like 1%, 5%. Everything was like, well, we're paying this 1% over here. We want you guys to give us more 1% of your money. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. I have projections and accountants and bookkeepers that we built a fulfillment side on that is based on this percentage. You know what I'm saying? So
Mm-hmm.
that's causing disruption over here. And then maybe greed's not the right word, but there's different ideas of how money should be allocated and spent amongst partners. And that can cause some serious disruption, especially if, like in this case or in my case, yeah, I can give you more percentage, but that takes money out of my pocket. Or I don't even know what you're going to spend it on. And I'm not sure that you've spent it on the right things anyway. Like, why would I give you more money on a promise of better results when I don't know what you're even spending it on? Like, I have no, once that percentage leaves my side, I don't have any say anymore about how that money's spent. I don't have any control over that. So not only do you have this complexity issue of what are we doing, but you have this, I guess greed's the best word. Is there another word for greed? But it's like how money is allocated becomes a serious problem in partnerships, man, because
Yeah.
anybody that's ever been to a church knows it's hard to spend a $2,000 offering to get new drapes for the sanctuary, let alone, hey, how are we going to spend this $1 million or whatever it is, right? So complexity almost has, it seems like it just leads to greed. And if you can't get on the same page about those percentages and about what's happening and about how money's being spent, then and our problem, I think too, we had, I think most partnerships are like a partner at the top, but then the company's all owned under the partners. But you're over here running the website, and they're over there bringing you affiliates, and he's over here building an agency. And he hired other customers too, didn't he? Then he starts
He
serving other
did.
customers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
so that's an even
yeah.
bigger problem, right?
Yeah.
Because now the money, is that fueling your other side of this, or are
Mm-hmm.
we still in partnership over here? But that
Correct.
greed thing, it just seems to settle into every partnership I've ever heard at some point or another.
True story.
We're not bashing partnerships, by the way. I would be a partner again. I will have partners. I will have partners again for things I want to do. You know what I'm saying? But
Mm-hmm.
this is the fruits and traumas of partnerships. So bring in abilities you don't have, get access, and have a potential to make more money. Other benefits: you're not alone. It's exciting. You have someone, you have a peer you can work with. Huge challenge: greed sets in, and boy, once greed sets in, you can't mess it up. Anything else on the challenge side of partnerships for you? Anything else like that was really bad, or that like where'd the PTSD come from, basically?
Just really, it was like the year of trying to get divorced. That was just
Ooh,
a headache
yeah,
of
man.
just going through attorneys and going back and forth. And you then also it's like, imagine like you're trying like really like getting divorced from your spouse, and at the same time you're trying to raise your kids and give
Mm,
them the attention that they deserve, that they need to nurture them. When you're going through an
mm,
ugly divorce, like they're not going to get the attention they need. Like you're just not
yeah,
emotionally available. And
yeah,
during that stretch, like the website, our baby was not getting the same attention that it needed. And that began this process of, not being able to communicate and know what's actually being worked on, knowing that his heart's not in it. And yet I can't really dive in yet because I don't have full control. And so it was, yeah, it was a lot of conversations between my wife, between attorneys. I mean, it was just emotionally exhausting.
I don't think I've ever. I have now went through an unwinding. Yours was definitely a divorce, like you
Straight
know,
up.
straight up, somebody's keying their car and setting some shirts on fire in the front lawn, kind of deal. You know what I mean? Mine was actually very like, hey, we cannot come to an agreement of how we can work alongside each other anymore. Still love you, but we're gonna unwind this thing now. But man, last summer, dude, I just did a podcast, another episode of this show. I was talking about anxiety, and we're gonna do some episodes on depression. But like I know for a fact, as I unwound the company that I built, which was not my original vision for my company anyway. Um, as we unwound that, man, I had a summer of moving us in a different direction. We had started laying off staff. Like I had a sales staff. We were no longer going to be going out on the road to host live events and seminars at that time. I had to tell them, hey, you're not going to be going out anymore. You guys find something new to do. Our team had grown very large. I mean, we were spending tens of thousands of dollars a month in payroll. And I had hand curated every employee on my team from my existing customer base and community that I had built online. So like these many of them were like success stories from our programs and stuff, man. So these were people I really, really cared about, you know? And I spent basically 3 months just every week calling one or two people and saying, hey, you don't have a job anymore. Hey, you don't have a job anymore. Hey, we're going in a different direction. Hey, I had to make a decision that's going to affect your family. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
It was the right decision in hindsight, I think, for my health and for where we wanted to go. But at the same time, that still sucks. It sucks. And like at the end of this unwinding process, dude, I just went into a dark place. I went into massive anxiety on if I had done the right thing, which now looking back in hindsight, I'm so blessed and glad that I did it exactly how I did it. But like, I just wasn't ready for it, man. And it was hard. An unwinding of a partnership, dude, it's like it's just depressing. It's anxious, and it took me 3 or 4 months to get my mind back in order um, from that moment. And people don't talk about that, man. I don't know if I've ever heard anybody say something like that, like, they're not partners anymore. But like the human toll and cost is savage. But I think the personal growth is really good too. Like now that I've been through it and I'm on the other side of it, I think
Mm-hmm.
you are too, emotionally, mentally, and things like that. I do look back with 2020 and be like, man, that was a really good growth. Even the unwinding of it was a good growth experience for me.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that now that you're kind of climbing out of the other side of the valley?
Oh man, like I'm a better person for it.
Mm.
As much as I have forgiven him, I've prayed for him, and I mean that. Like I truly mean that. And for me, like what it uncovered was having two parents that were divorced. I had a lot of childhood trauma that I had not processed, and it
Mm.
gave me an opportunity to identify why I had so much fear confronting him, and then also like why it hurt so bad when the breakup happened. And a lot of that was just like I said, it just connected back to childhood trauma, and it all made sense.
Same thing, man. Like there was like, there's this. Let me go through the phase. It's almost like the stages of grief, but there's the phases of unwinding a partnership. Like the first part is the second it's gone. There's like an exhilaration. Like I'm free. I can make all my decisions and do whatever I want. And like that was like the first couple months, right? And then there was like, but then the fear, like, oh my gosh, I had rearranged my whole life to deal with life this way. And now I'm not doing it anymore. Can I do it another way? Can I do it the old way? And then it's like when the fear gets a hold of you and the anxiety starts, it turns into like depression because it's like your vision died or something. The $100 million sale, the whatever you were planning
Hmm.
goes away. And then like there's depression, and then finally, there is I think in that dark moment, all your insecurities are laid bare, man. I have done nothing but do therapy every week for a week after, like for like 4 months after this, and it all led back to almost none of it was related in hindsight, 2020 hindsight, to the actual partnership dissolving. That's a transaction. That's humans.
Yeah.
But dude, I was the same way, man. I found all my insecurities were laid bare. The things that I had avoided with ambition and action for almost my entire career, to be honest with you, were just exposed straight up. And I actually had to deal with that stuff, man. I was just with my therapist yesterday, and I was like, basically, we laid out in 30 minutes everything I had been talking to him about for 2 years. And it was all because the dissolution of that partnership just made me have to confront myself. And I think that's why people get scared to get into partnerships. It's like when you're dating and you live with somebody or you're just going out on dates, you can go home and still have all your shit. all your baggage. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But when they move in with you, they're going to see how disgusting you really are. Right? And you have
Yeah.
no choice but to deal with your crap. And I feel like that's what it was. And then when you get divorced, which I've never been divorced and never will be, I love you, Jocelyn, ever. And but like like that separation, like you have to realize that some of it was you too. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that's a good question. Now that we've okay, what was your fault in the partnership failing? What was
Oh,
our fault in our
yeah.
partnerships that kind of didn't make it happen?
My one of my biggest faults in all this was I I was so prideful in how much I was making and how much little work that I was doing that I didn't ask more questions about, hey, like what is your team working on? Like how are we investing our money? Like how can I help? I was so removed. And like there was some of that he also kind of that was kind of the relationship that I don't know if he wanted that. That's what it felt like at times. But I knowing, looking back, like I could have been more involved. I
Mm,
could have been even more of an asset, to helping the growth. And there was some other personal stuff going on, like as I mentioned, I alluded to. But I mean, you could look back some of my older YouTube videos where it was like, I'm making so much in passive income. Look at me. And the truth was, I had a partner who, in his healthy state, had a team that was growing it and kicking butt, and they were working a lot of hours. And yeah, like I just was so far removed from it that, yeah, like that's definitely a big part for me.
yeah. I think for me, I think the biggest lesson that I learned was that my ego was getting into what in the way. And it was almost like instead of like evaluating percentage changes as a emotionally healthy CEO, it was an ego thing. It was like, how dare you take from me? And I'm one of the reasons that this revenue is even being generated. And kind of like that too, like that
Hmm.
there's a star mentality that you can get, especially in what we do. You know what I'm saying? When you're on YouTube and everybody's telling you how good you are. And then when you got results to back it up, like I'm making a lot of money for how little I'm working, you know? Like that ego kicks in, bro, and it is just so hard to combat. And I wish, but that was my ego, old ego. You know what I'm saying? It was the ego that
Hmm.
our egos are there to protect us and keep us safe. That's why we create egos and identities anyway. And you do kind of start, you start buying your own hype. You start drinking your own Kool-Aid, and then all of a sudden it's like, how dare you? This is me. This is so. If I'm the same way, man. If I could look back at it, I'd be like, man, wish I was calmer. Wish I was more mature. Wish I was more involved. Wish I could have looked at it differently. And then different outcomes might have happened. They may not have. I think structurally, both of our partnerships were so poorly entered into
Yeah.
with
Josh.
handshakes, high fives, and hey, you want to drink on my soda? that like that like it was probably doomed to failure. Um, would you ever do partnerships again?
um, Probably not. Probably not. No. I would no. I'm good.
Yeah,
I'm good.
that's a great answer. I think I would if for example that I really knew for sure that I wanted to do something and I didn't want to learn the skill or hire the skill. I think that I would maybe partner with somebody, but I would also have like much better written agreements going in. We don't do anything with anyone without a massive paper trail now and a massive
Hmm.
like if we say something like this has to be in writing with hard dates that are in the future, and like you just got to have written agreements, man. If you ever do a partnership without a written agreement, guys, you're absolutely crazy. Just
Yeah.
absolutely because then you don't even have a fallback point when things go sideways, which they are always going to go sideways, to be able to regroup and kind of renegotiate. So I would do that. Now, both of us, that's hilarious. All right, so we got a 50-50 ball there. Jeff's like, my partnership sunk and we'll just leave it at the bottom of the ocean. I'm over here like, can we rebuild the Titanic and not let it sink this time? You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
like, what about our wives? Now, this is a unique thing. I think a lot of people, you know, work want to work with their spouse, maybe not. You and I both have business partners that are our spouse. They're our life partner. My partner is Jocelyn. Your partner is Mandy. Like, how's that different? You know what I'm saying? Like, how's that? And then how do we navigate that a little bit here? We won't go deep down this one. We'll come back and talk about this one later. But when your business partner is your life partner, it's going to affect some things, y'all, and that's the bottom line.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's challenging in its own way. It's helpful, like as I mentioned, like Mandy was very animate about, like, she actually didn't want me to give up equity, like back in the day, but she's like, just kind of let it happen. And then she challenged me to inquire more about the expenses. And there was something else written into the contract that saved me almost like $10 million that she fought to
Wow.
have removed. That initially, like,
Okay.
I had too much fear and shame to even ask. So, I mean, there were so many different things where I'm like, her intuition, that women's intuition, man, it proved so valuable that when it came back to like, hey, let's start working together, I'm like, I actually, I trust you. Like, I kind of trust you more than me right now, just based on some of the situations I got myself into. And she's always been good just to not only call me on my BS, but also like help me help me with help me share my vision in a way that people can relate to.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, as someone who's had almost 2 decades of experience in online marketing and having a wealth management firm, like, I'm so far removed from like how it was to start that it's hard for me to like dumb it down, like going
Yeah.
back to those beginning stages. So like I can kind of share something like, hey, what do you think about this? He's like, no, you gotta make it more simple. And I'm like, gosh, like, so that's been super helpful, but also challenging, like when husband and wife are not agreeing on other marital stuff, family stuff that is not even to do with the business, like that stuff can carry in. So that can definitely add its own elements of
Yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah,
When you're,
you,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
When your business life affects your love life, you got some problems. You better bet on the love life. Is all I got to say because it's bad things if you don't. Yeah, Jocelyn and I found that like it's like we're definitely 50-50 partners and everything, but like it's almost like you even have to hyper delegate even more, and you have to be more on the same page with your spouse when they're your business partner because and you've got to have ways to transition out of the workplace. Like one thing that we have just totally drawn a line on is when we can talk about things. Like, we have to talk about things as early in the day as possible if it's a big thing. You know what I'm saying? If it's a financial decision in the business, if it's a hiring decision in the business, if it's a tax thing or whatever we're doing, investments. Like, man, that stuff cannot happen after 3 o'clock. If it does, dude, it spills into our children's lives. We're laying in bed at night talking about stupid stuff that we should not be talking about at night. We should be watching TV and relaxing and stuff like being a couple at nighttime. And like it's just that's the kind of like a business partner you can fight with each other. But it's kind of like if you were like on a football team and you were the quarterback and the wide receiver like stole your girlfriend, you still better throw that cat a touchdown or you're losing. You got to throw the route. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But like that does not have to happen in your marriage. Like that does not have to happen. You got to like have some boundaries when your business partner is your spouse. Or is it that's the one that can't go sideways. I think we both can agree on that.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, man. Well, cool, man. This was a great discussion, man. It was good to vent some of our PTSD with each other because we've not got to talk about our partnerships and our relationships with other companies and stuff like that in a while. And I think for anybody out there with a partnership, I would just say, man, be on the same page, communicate with each other, don't assume anything, and if you don't want to do a partnership too, like how CEO world is, man. You see everybody else, man. I got a partner and we were able to 10x our business and we're going to exit this business. And you start looking at the greener grass of the partnerships. But man, if you're making good money, you don't need a partner. You don't need to scale and you don't need to like, do all this other crap just because people say, well, this is the way that you have to do it. Because me and Jeff did that and it went sideways. So learn from our mistakes, people. All right. Hey, what are you up to now, Jeff? What are you doing now, man? Where can everybody find you
Yeah.
online?
So talking about partnerships, with my wife. So kind of just look back and did a bit of a pivot of like, okay, like what have we done? Like, what do we enjoy teaching others to do? And kind of going back a little, maybe a little old school flip lifestyle, like Jocelyn and Shane here, but like we're basically teaching people how to create a digital product, something in that $97 or below range, and use social media to kind of build their brand and create passive income by selling digital products. So we've created a
Nice.
course called Passive 1K that we're currently promoting, and it's been a lot of fun, man. It's like we get to teach people like what we enjoy, what we're passionate about, and it's kind of brought us together, kind of like a shared vision. So that's what we're doing.
Where can people find that at? Website wise, got a place they can go, anything like that?
Yeah, you can go to wealthhacker.com and that will take you to the webpage, but you can also find me on Instagram, jjeffrose, or Mandy's at House of Rose, and also Mandy Rose Official for her Instagram hacks that she's also doing on a separate IG feed. So that's where you can find us.
Check it out, man. Buddy, I appreciate your candor and honesty, and I love you, dude. Thanks for coming on the show, man.
Too, man. Appreciate it.
All right, y'all. That wraps up my great conversation with my good friend, Jeff Rose, man. Great dude. Was blessed to watch him build a partnership and watch his partnership implode. Sorry, Jeff, but it happened. We just talked about it. So I'm going to talk about it right now. And, just learned a lot from him, how partnerships worked. I was always so against partnerships, but now, again, on the backside of it, it's like everything else in life, y'all. There's benefits and challenges. And whenever you make a decision in anything you do, you're accepting a bucket of benefits and a bucket of challenges. So are those the buckets that you want to deal with? That's really the point with this conversation with Jeff, is to look at the good, the bad, the why, the structure, the mistakes, and then take that information out and make a decision on your own. Partnerships are extremely rewarding. I will say that you, in most cases, can make a lot more money in a partnership probably than you can by yourself, just by the nature of the beast. And then you just have to decide if that's the bucket of challenges that you want to deal with. And right now, the challenges that I'm going to deal with are figuring out how to get my kids to practice. It is almost 3:00 here. I got to go so that I can pick up my kids, that I can get into my dad hat activities this afternoon. So thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Shane Sam Show. I hope it was helpful. We'd love to hear from you. Check us out over on YouTube. Go to youtube.com/Shane Sams or search for @Shane Sams. And you can check out our YouTube channel. That's where we drop all of our content first. So make sure you go over there and you subscribe and follow and drop a comment on this episode of the show so that we can see what you thought about partnerships. I'd love to hear about your experience with partnerships. If you like partnerships, if you don't like partnerships, come sound off in the comments over at our YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe and follow this podcast on your podcast player of choice. And if you'd like to reach out to me personally, head over to shanesams.com, hit that contact form, drop me a line. I've got tons of amazing information and resources over there for speakers, influencers, and entrepreneurs who are telling their story and selling their products and services on the internet. All you got to do is head over to shanesams.com to check all that out. That's a wrap on this episode of the Shane Sam Show. Thank you so much for listening. Till next time, remember, in anything you do, be consistent, be prolific, and be resilient. Light it up, y'all. We'll see you then.